As you heard, during the most recent government shutdown, there are major changes for health insurance starting in 2026. Today, we're going to talk about who is most impacted by this and how it impacts cross-border retirees. Hello, my name is Brian Haggard. I'm a certified financial planner, chartered financial analyst, and I'm the founder of RetireMitten Financial. We help simplify your cross-border retirement plan. And when clients first come to us, we go through a series of 5 different meetings to help them complete a comprehensive financial plan. And one of those meetings we schedule for health insurance and retirement. For a lot of our clients, that's a big concern that they have heading into retirement. And we talk to them about what their options are going to be and what is the makes the most sense for them. In this conversation today, we're going to talk a little bit about one of those options in retirement. That's the Affordable Care Act, or ACA. For retirees, there are a couple options for health insurance depending on how old you are when you are retired. For almost everybody, if you retire after the age of 65, you are going to go on to Medicare as long as you qualify for it. Qualifying for Medicare means that you have to have lived and worked in the United States for at least 10 years to be eligible for a Medicare benefit or be married to somebody who's eligible for a Medicare benefit. It's pretty easy, to be honest with you, if you retire after the age of 65. Where things get trickier is if you retire prior to age 65. Typically, if you retire prior to age 65, you have two health insurance options at retirement. One is Cobra. Cobra, you might have heard of before. It's a continuation of your current health insurance that you have through an employer. The difference is the employer doesn't pay for it anymore, and you can only have it for 18 months after retirement. And because the employer doesn't put any money into it, the nice thing is that Cobra can be pretty robust, but it can also be very expensive. We've seen clients that are paying over $2,000 a month for Cobra insurance. The other option that most pre-65 retirees have is ACA, or the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And Obamacare is the big policy that is under the kind of scrutiny right now and going through a lot of changes. And that's what we're really going to focus on today, because for a lot of our clients, they do go on to ACA at retirement. So, what is the Affordable Care Act, or ACA? The ACA is a series of different plans that you can buy. You typically will purchase it through healthcare.gov, which is a government agency, but you do buy it through private health insurance, such as like your Blue Cross or Aetna, United Healthcare. And when you choose an Affordable Care Act plan, you either choose a bronze, silver, gold, or platinum plan. Bronze plans are typically the cheapest monthly, but also going to be the most expensive out of pocket if you do need care. Platinum plans are going to be the most expensive on a month-to-month basis, but usually has lower out-of-pocket costs. Now, the Affordable Care Act, and the big idea behind it is the premiums are based on income. And the lower your income is, which we're going to talk about, the lower your premiums will be. And the higher they are, then the higher they will be. You get health care credits, or tax credits based on how much income you have. And when you apply for ACA, you actually tell them how much income you are going to make. They don't base this on previous years. If you're applying for a 2026 ACA plan, you would tell the people you're applying through how much income you're going to receive in 2026. And then from there, they're going to tell you how big of a credit you qualify for and how much your monthly premium is going to be. So tax planning is very important. Now, you might say, well, hey, Brian, why don't I just tell them I'm going to make $10,000 a year and I qualify for this gigantic credit and don't have to pay anything out of pocket? And that's a good idea. However, when you file your taxes, so if you told the government you were going to make a certain amount of money in 2026, They then base your premium on that idea. Then when you file your taxes, if they find out, or if your income is higher than the amount that you told them, you're going to actually have to owe some of that credit back. You'll actually have to owe quite a bit more money potentially on your tax return if you were wrong about how much income that you actually were going to receive. So tax planning is very important to avoid this large tax bill during tax time. So let me give you a little example of how these premium tax credits work. You may go on to the Obamacare website. You can go to healthcare.gov to explore different options, what options are available, what the cost is for these different options. And you might go on there and put your information in, and you may find that the average silver plan for a couple is $2,000 per month, for example. They can vary quite a bit depending on the plan that you choose. And you may find that when you put in your information that you and your spouse might get $1,500 per month of a credit towards that $2,000 per month. So instead of you paying $2,000 per month for this health insurance plan, you would get a $1,500 credit and you would only have to pay $500 per month. The larger the credit that you get, the lower the insurance cost is going to be, or the premium cost is going to be. And like I said, that income is based on how much you're going to earn that year. They don't look at previous income. And if you were wrong and you put in a lower amount, you might get dinged during tax time. Now, what you probably heard during this most recent government shutdown is that these tax credits are going away, and as a result, monthly premiums were skyrocketing for a lot of people out there. And that may be the case, but it doesn't appear to be the case for everybody. I ran a scenario of somebody who has retired at age 62, or they're 62 years old, they're married, and I just put the area that I live in, which is Milford, Michigan. But I did run this at a couple different places, and the strategies, or at least the scenarios, all look to be about the same. As you can see here, the credits that you qualify are larger when you have a lower amount of income, meaning the premiums that you're paying are lower because of that. Now you can see that the credits available in 2026 for what I would say the lower income earners, 30,000, 50,000, 75,000, are actually higher than what they were in 2025. You could see somebody in my community who makes $30,000 a year, their credits available to them are 2179 per month here in 2026, and they were only $1,509 in 2025 for this same scenario. 62 years old, living in our community, married individuals. And so those people, in theory, are actually paying less in health insurance in 2026 than what they were paying in 2025. And that, when we look at the scenario, that's repeated both when they made 50,000 and 75,000. However, that's when things start to get a little ugly. The biggest change that appears to be under the new healthcare law or changes is that once you reach a certain income level, those credits go away completely. You can see that last year in 2025, somebody making $100,000 was still getting a credit of $800 per month. And even somebody making $150,000 was getting a credit of nearly $450 per month. Again, I get all this information from healthcare.gov. You could go onto the website if you want to see your own situation. Now what we see is that anybody, if you are a couple making over $85,000, you would receive no credits. And if you're single and earning over $62,000, those credits also go away completely. And this is a huge change. Last year, if you earned 80, or this year, if you, or 2026, if you earn $84,000, your credit would be $1,574 per month in my community. If you earned $85,000, that credit would be zero. That's an $18,000, $19,000 a year difference just because your income was an extra $1,000. That is the big change that happens this year. And it wasn't just my community that I found this. I looked also at Naples, Florida, which we have a lot of retirees down in Florida. And it was the same thing. Actually, in Naples, for a married couple, 62 years old, earning $84,000, they would get nearly $2,600 a month in healthcare credits, probably making health insurance almost free for a lot of plans out there. And at $85,000, those credits go away. That's a $30,000 difference for somebody making $84,000 and $85,000 in healthcare credits. This was all taken off of healthcare.gov on November 10th, 2025, for married individuals who are 62 years old. This is a huge deal, and it makes tax planning here in 2026, if you're on the ACA plan, extremely important. So, what does this all mean? For our clients, this means that tax planning here in 2026 is more important than ever. Now, we talked a little bit about income and that $85,000 threshold, and quite honestly, how important it is to keep your income under 85,000 in 2026 if you're expecting to get any ACA credits and keep those health insurance premiums lower. First of all, when the government looks at your income, they look at your adjusted gross income on your tax return. However, you have to add back untaxed Social Security. So for everybody, at least 15% of your Social Security is untaxed. It comes back to you tax free. Some people, lower income earners, might actually have 100% of their Social Security tax free on their tax return. However, when we're looking at it in this equation for that $85,000 number, we have to look at the full amount that you receive in Social Security. For our Canadian clients, that would also include your CPP and OAS benefits as well. The other thing that you need to add back to your income is any tax-free interest that you might have. You might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm going to try to keep my income as low as possible. So I'm going to put a lot of my brokerage accounts into municipal bonds, which are essentially tax-free on the federal government side. However, the government says not so fast. You actually have to add back this tax-free interest to get your income as well. So that's important when you're looking at how much money can you actually earn. So what are the big things that you would want to consider doing if you want to keep that income under 85,000, especially if you're kind of on the edge there? First and foremost, for our clients, we're trying to keep that taxable income lower. We don't want them to not spend any money. We just want to try to keep their taxes as low as possible while they're getting these healthcare premiums. And so the biggest thing that we want to do is try to encourage them to draw any income they need from after tax accounts. That would be brokerage accounts, checking accounts, savings accounts. For some of our clients, we're even recommending they take money out of Roth accounts. Now, that's not typically what a person would do early on in retirement, but if it means the difference between 20 or 30,000 a year in premiums or healthcare premiums, it makes sense to try to keep your income as low as possible. We also want to try to, for some clients, try to reduce how much they're getting in dividends, capital gains, interest payments. We do that by sometimes moving out of their high dividend, high yielding bond funds and moving those into lower dividend paying stock funds that are a little bit better as far as, you might still get the same amount of growth, but they're not giving you all of that dividends and interest that you have to include on your tax return. The other big thing that you want to do is you want to plan ahead. I have a lot of clients here at the end of 2025 in which we're taking IRA withdrawals out. We're realizing capital gains. We're getting money moved into after a tax accounts today so that in 2026 they can then withdraw that money without having to worry about having their income going over that $85,000 threshold and all of a sudden losing out on all of these tax credits that might be available to them. So you want to make sure you're planning ahead. You want to have a tax strategy in place, and you want to make sure that if possible, if you're on ACA, to try to keep that income under $85,000 here in 2026. As I mentioned before, healthcare planning is extremely important for us. It's extremely important for our clients. Almost all of our clients are cross-border retirees that have come down from Canada, and now having to go out and get their own health insurance in retirement is a brand new concept for them. And we try to make it as easy as possible for them so they understand the cost. We can build that into the plan and they can feel comfortable going into retirement. Can't tell you how many of our clients were nervous about retiring early because of what the healthcare costs might be, and we try to alleviate some of those concerns that they may have. Feel free to schedule a complimentary consultation at our website, retiremitten.com. We can talk to you a little bit about what services we have available and how we may be able to help simplify your cross border retirement plan. Thank you.